It's Charlene Sinjenko. We're going to have a conversation today about where we're at between summer solstice and coming up towards the end of June. I'm here with my good friend Ashley. I'll let her introduce herself. Juicy conversation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Westeregger. I'm here as a connector with Charlene. We're going to have, I think, a really interesting conversation, but we have some general topics, but we haven't landed specifically. So I look forward to us speaking about where things are going for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what I'd love to start with and then just see where it takes us. I want to touch into how you're feeling about the energy right now, kind of coming out of solstice and then coming up into a full moon shortly. It's interesting. I've been planning a pretty special gathering, as you know, coming up in a few days. And someone asked me what the intention was underneath the gathering and what would a guest kind of expect. And I thought, that's really interesting because you'll go to something and different people will have different experiences based on their readiness. And so you set a space, and in this case, it's to really close out the month of June, the spring season, in a really intentional way, to maybe recalibrate a little bit. It's been a pretty high flying time, and to reorient ourselves as leaders and founders and change makers before the summer season, and to do that with intention. Typically say when I gather people, like we'll sit around a boardroom table and we'll talk strategy or we'll talk projections, but we don't often enough, I feel, do what we need to do in just even a really simple or ceremonial way to kind of really take care of ourselves so we're ready to be the best version of ourselves heading into a new season. I don't know where that takes you, but I'd love for you to touch into solstice and your work and kind of what you've been sensing and feeling.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. So I'll just share that the work that I do is I'm an astrologer and a creative. I sometimes like to refer to myself as like a creative channel and facilitator. I've been blessed in the last handful of years to do some really, really beautiful work with the horses. So I want to talk about them because I love them so much. They've been one of my greatest teachers, and just I want to bring them into the space with this conversation as a way of honoring. And I felt even when you and I were talking before this that they want to be part of more conversations. Okay, so I guess that's where I want to start. I thought I was going to say something else. With my experiences with the horses is it's naturally ebbed and flowed, and given the path has not been linear. And I completed a big project within the horse world back in November. And then I kind of really took a long break, and there was lots of changes in the different people that I was working with and the places that I used to do it. And it was a lot of endings. And I've gone through this before with the horses where I think, where is it going to go? And to me, it's this honoring of trust that even if I, as a human, don't know where my relationship with these beings or life or what I want to create is going to go, they always come back. They're always here. They're always with me. So, one, I'm excited for the evolution of that and this time we're going into. And when you ask about the solstice, it really made me think about when we have an idea of something. I had an idea of what I wanted my solstice to be. You and I spoke that we might have this conversation on that day. And yet what my heart and my body needed was alone time, was solitude, was rest, was nurturing and care. And my heart needed a lot of tending. I've been experiencing a lot of grief and sadness. And I think when I think of my own experience, but also just tune into the bigger pieces, is I feel like there's been conflicting energy for people, myself included. And yet the undertone that I feel that we're stepping into now and moving forward is this tone of beauty. And sometimes you can see grief described as sometimes like when I talk about grief or I talk about sadness or more painful emotions, it's actually this exquisite beauty of life that if we didn't feel, then how would we experience the beauty of life? So I feel like the energy right now is this really warm, surrendered, liminal space. You and I were talking about the Gemini new moon that just recently happened. And for me and people in my orbit, it was very intense, like a lot of intensity that actually could create mental health, I don't want to say mental health concerns, but that could bring some cognitive like awareness of how is my mental health doing from the intensity of what's happening. And so I feel like now we've moved out of that, and maybe some of us are still not quite clear on why or what that was about. But there's been this orientation shift to we're now in Cancer season. It gives me the image of waters and being nurtured by the great mother, the mother, our earth. And that even though summer is beginning and there's so much sun and fire energy and joy and how so many of us like to spend our time, which is what I had an idea about. I
Mhm.
thought that that's what my solstice was going to be, but that we also need that tending. And by allowing myself to surrender to the tending that I needed, it actually has opened me up to be able to receive what's coming. And, we talked about this a little bit before. To me, it feels a lot about pace and intentionality, but feeling and nurturing. And like, as a woman, like, dropping into that womb space, like into that part of your body, like your own seas, your own ocean of creation. And so thank you for asking such a beautiful question. That those are the pieces that I'm feeling. And why I bring the horses into is, who are we partnering with in this time? Who are we wanting to in the future?
Yeah.
Because I hope anyone listening can feel and resonate with the specialness that they bring with their hearts and their energy, and what we're being asked to do and be offered, because we're really riding the wave of that fire horse energy. We're really riding the wave of horse energy this year. Yeah, that's what I have to say about
Oh,
that.
man, there's so much there. So much you touched on. I'm just trying to decide which threads to pull through. I think what I want to maybe pull on just a little bit, couple of things. One being, we are living in such an interesting time. And I believe that the pace and the intensity and the demands and the multiple priorities, they are asking us to also take care in new and different ways.
Mm.
So if things are escalating over here and you're doing things to take care of yourself, your whole self as a leader, as a change maker, as a founder, using tactics and techniques and strategies from 5 years ago, I think you're potentially falling a bit short.
Mm.
And so in my own journey, and I can only speak, about my own journey, it's been really leaning into, okay, where am I being asked to lean into the tools and the techniques and the strategies and the healing, whether it is breath work, whether it is being much more intentional when I am in the water, whether it is listening and absorbing stories, even like stories and stories as songs, as a modality to help release grief or experience an emotion. In any other avenue, as high performing folks, we are all about like the latest and greatest cutting edge efficiencies, like we're on it. And in this one area, are we also on it? And that's really the direct guidance that I've been given over the last number of months as an intuitive strategist. It's like, yeah, it's great to have the strategy, and how are you expanding it? How are you broadening it? How are you playing into the multi-dimensionality that we are and that we're moving into 2026 to 2030? Like, this is a really, really interesting time, and it's really stretching us. So I know I purposefully have set up various events and gatherings and tools and relationships and experiences and opportunities so that people have those landing spaces to recalibrate, to reorient, to release what they're carrying individually or collectively, and then to regroup, reemerge, like regenerate. And that's like the whole idea. That's why our logo for reGEN is a cicada. It's like, okay, and what does it look like in the next iteration? I'm curious, in your work as a healer and a creative, an artist, a guide, maybe what have you maybe noticed or kind of been called to in the last while? I'm going to even say this year,
Mm.
2026, that maybe bridges your art, your creativity, healing courses in new or different or regenerative ways, that you're kind of seeing all of these pieces sort of coming together. I'm curious if how you are experiencing healing and leadership in this
Mm.
industry is changing, really. Yeah.
Yeah. When you first started to talk about, the first thing that came up for me is women, and what it feels like simultaneously the pain that women have been through and experienced when it comes to their work, their craft, and how they are in the world. And to me, I love, because I didn't pre-plan this, like it's cool what I'm feeling, but it's almost like a call and a return to softness as women, as creators, as healers, as gatherers, as artists. Like, women are the creative vessel. We create life. There's such beautiful symbolism in that. And so, where have we been afraid to step outside the lines? Where have we been afraid to step outside of the corporate model? Where are we as individual women carrying grief in our body and our bones because of the way the structures of society function? And like, I know that's a very general statement, and I don't think it exists everywhere, but we can also agree that it does in how we navigate the world, how we work, how we connect to our bodies, and like, what do women need that they're not getting? And so to me, it feels like there's this emergence that's been arising. And for me personally, like I said, my nonlinear journey, sometimes I don't know how my art is going to come in, or how my astrology, or my time with the horses, or etc., my creativity. So there's this element of trust. And there's also this element of visibility of me, Ashley, not the performed Ashley, not the Ashley that learned that this is how she was meant to be safe as a child, or how I've learned to XYZ, or the Ashley who's been through a lot in the last few years, or whatever it is. But can I come together as like this whole woman and just like arrive and make on the scene, and bring my essence, and bring my voice, and bring my beauty in all the ways. Like, to me, creating for the sake of beauty is like a God-given gift. Like to just serve that. There's a lot of what I'm saying have been kind of recent recognitions of allowing myself, just to allow myself to take up space as me, not the me I thought, or I conditioned, or I thought I needed to be, or I thought that was the only way to be successful in this life, or to be resourced, or to be taken care of. And so there's that. And I think there's even pieces around community and quality connections, as in, like, if women were a part of the tribe and a part of the home and the hearth, like, how are we all kind of uplifting each other and ourselves? And just the interesting experience of that personal journey and the collective sharing of that beauty.
So, yeah, wow. It has me reflect what you've said. It has me reflect. A couple of weeks ago, as you know, we did a little orientation gathering, a little retreat on Vancouver Island. And it was very interesting how much love literally showed up in the space, like almost comical. And so when that happens, and I always kind of jokingly say, watch for the shit you can't make up, because and so 3 of the guests at the retreat had, like, either had drawn cards or symbols. One had a big heart on their shirt. The other had love heart tattoos and a story behind it. And I think the third woman drew a card around, around love. And so we had quite a conversation. And I think it's relevant with what you were saying, because I think what we're being asked, and I'm going to make a couple of non-gender comments from my personal feelings, but I think we're really being asked to pick up our warriorship in love. And,
Mm.
that old saying, like, kill them with kindness. I don't know. That's probably not a great saying, but to me, that's what I felt. It was like, we're going to pick up love and we're going to utilize it in a way that we maybe never have before, and like embody it and be brave and bold and caring from this place. And I think one of the things I hope to bring more of in this season is the opportunities for individuals, for people to step more into the creator that they are, holding that, that love element, because it's in the creative process that you're really opening up yourself as a channel. And so we talk a lot about, like, healing the planet, helping Mother Earth to healing, and we kind of throw these phrases around, but I honestly believe that the work that we can do on an individual and a group and a collective level is when we can let that creativity, that channel, open up from a place of love and do what we're inspired to do.
Mm.
It literally, we're operating at a vibe that literally does help healing to happen in our relationships, in our home environment, in our communities, in our conversations. And I really want to hold spaces that have people recognize that it starts from the core. And yeah, all the things and all the projects and all the companies and all the, all the things are important. And when we can come to it from this place in a way maybe that we haven't experienced before, it's going to feel really different. It's going to be regenerative. So, whether that is storytelling or leadership or politics or decision making or healthcare, but we have to own it first at a very, very different level, and then let it light up and out from there.
Mm. Yeah, that makes me think about the regenerative piece. And I would love to hear, what does regenerative mean to you? Like,
Mm.
how does that show up in your life, in your work,
Thank you
wherever?
for asking that. Yeah, it's really a word that has like been really with me probably since, oh gosh, about 20, probably 2015, like about a decade. It really is the constant and consistent line in the sand moment. It is really like claiming our identity and then tomorrow morning claiming our identity and who are we today, and never like forgetting and tapping into that soul expression that we are and why we're here, but how is that ever evolving and wanting to be expressed in a new way? And so it's interesting, like as a storyteller or as a strategist, I'm really listening from a new place. I'm listening, grounded in ancient wisdom and grounded in cultural values, and old stories have us circulate back to where we were, and we're not there anymore. So, to tie in the horse analogy, it's like, look where you're going, right?
Yes.
Trust yourself and your partner.
Mm.
Balance the fear that may come up because it is new, but that's where we're being asked to go and lead, with the faith that will build and the belief that will build as a result. So it's a whole different play on leadership. It's thinking, acting, talking, responding, interacting from a place that constantly and consistently builds our belief, because it's always new and it's always new. And yet it's always been.
Mm. I love that so much. It makes me think of a couple things. One, it makes me think of when we first started to get to know each other. I was like, oh, you're a threshold walker, like being on the threshold of the new. And the times in this conversation that you've brought up the new, I get this feeling in my mind and this like image in my mind's eye of just like the expansiveness of the future that comes with this belief piece that you're talking about. And it's popped up a couple of times. There's the conversation around the Aquarian age and how we're in this new era and this new generation and this new experience. And I feel strongly about the ancient and the future, and it feels kind of like this really beautiful expansiveness of what's possible if we essentially lift our heads out of the sand of these belief systems of the past. Because when I talk about it and when you talk about it, it's like two. And I almost feel like the what we're coming out of the sand feels heavy and dense in the old ways of being. And obviously it's not just like this, but then it's almost like the mind's eye image is the future of what we're headed towards and what we're going towards. And it feels much lighter and much more spacious. So I love the way you speak about the belief piece being like at the forefront, and just what happens when we go from looking down here at this is the way it's been and this is the way it is, to wait, there's this whole space and horizon.
Yeah.
And there's even an image I found that keeps showing up, so I'll have to send it to you to illustrate what I'm thinking. But I love hearing you talk about that, especially in the regenerative piece, because we're not who we were. And it's so important, the stories and the culture and the ancientness, like the ceremony, it's so important. And how can we also bring who we are now and where we're going to facilitate the future? Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting because so many of the lessons that I teach and I carry, I've learned from my body. We've talked about a decade of working very closely with my body and with other clients and their bodies and their health and their physiques, and what I learned about transformation by design through that 10-year process. And if you look at a body, it's such an amazing, amazing teacher if you are to injure yourself. If something is to happen, it's regenerative cells are like restoring immediately,
Mm,
right? Yes, you are asked to rest, you're asked to take care of yourself, and your body is such an incredible teacher. And again, how often do we think from that place of like, it's we've been brought up in a culture of go, 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 do, more, more, more. And it's like, okay, we're gonna just take five. And we're going to really think about who the next best version of ourself is, who we're being asked to be in a
mm,
bolder, more beautiful way that is absolutely connected to our soul print or our soul stamp expression of why we're here in the first place. And there is a gap between where we think we are now,
mm.
where we think we are, and that future self that we envision, when in essence, there actually is no gap. It's just our invitation to step more fully into it. But we take it step by step. I usually think about it more as a kaleidoscope. It's not a linear thing. It's
Mm.
like, it's a point of readiness. And so we surround ourselves with the supports and the tools and the people that we feel we need to
Yeah.
build our belief in what we think is possible in terms of closing that gap. When really, we've heard it called, the quantum leap. We've heard it called all sorts of things, when really it is time in and of essence is changing. And
Mm.
if
Mhm.
we if we're alive and awake and aware, and we've used some of the technology tools that we have the privilege of having at our fingertips right now, we know that our whole relationship with time is changing.
Oh, yeah.
um, think about how long it would have taken me to drive out to see you, and, have this conversation and process the film. And it's like, wow, it's such a privilege. I
Mhm.
think my question is, does our integrity, does our courage match the level of the privilege and the tools that we have at our fingertips right now? Because right now, I think they're a little bit of ahead of where we are. And so in my work as an intuitive strategist, I'm trying to create the paces, places, and the spaces and the paces, to maybe close that integrity gap.
Mm. Yeah, it makes me think of a few things, and there was one really good one that just left my mind, so I'm gonna hope that it comes back. When you were speaking about the pace of things, this is in part kind of how I created and why I created my astrology readings in the ways that they're laid out, because the information we learn about ourselves is so valuable. All this that's available. Like, it's what a gift that how you and I have become connected and that we get to have these conversations in two very different locations at the moment. And I love the experiential piece that, yes, you're learning about yourself, but for me as like with my astrology, how are you integrating it? So often how my readings have begun to develop, and they'll probably continue to develop into more full experiences, but there's usually an offering that I create that's recorded, that's sent to the person, and then we come together live, and it's this ceremonial experience of them integrating what is being offered. Because even in my own journey with learning about myself, it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that? And how do I integrate that into my being? And I think it is interesting to navigate the pace of the world and what so many of us are moving through or experiencing, and healing modalities and personal development it's a huge space, and there's value in it, and integration, rest. 'Cause I know this personally, of we're being in such a rush to get there wherever we're going, and yet can we like attune to the gifts of the moment as well? Because like you said, that's already us. Yeah, it's to me, it just makes me think of like not skipping a step. And also it's like the more we do that, the more readiness we have available to actually meet the speed of, to use, I know the word timeline is used often, but our literal timeline of what's possible in our life. And like you say, these quantum leaps, or how fast things can go. Sorry, an alarm just went off on my phone.
Okay.
But to echo some of the things you said, how are we actually arriving?
Mhm.
You know, do we have the space? Like, do we have the capacity? Do we have the belief? Is it working through the disbelief, or is it working through the feeling, or is it working through the energy? XYZ, you know? And sometimes I think there that conversation creates a lot of lackle of like, I don't do this, then I won't get the thing. And then it's like that feels awful. You
Mhm.
know, because then it feels like there's this narrative sometimes I feel like that shows up that creates this urgency that if I don't do this, then I'm gonna miss out.
Yeah.
And, like, what if that beautiful future and timeline that you're speaking of is available to all of us? I think it requires us and asks us to step out of the rush and the urgency and find that flow with our energy, which comes from loving ourselves.
Yeah. Out of the rush and into the rhythm.
Yeah.
And I just want to, I think probably the last thing I'll touch on is I wanted to pull through the idea of integration
Mm,
because I do think it is a growth edge that healers and teachers and practitioners can really, be leaning into is how do we be of the highest service to our clients and our students and really it is how are we helping them to build a daily practice that helps them to integrate into embodiment. And so a couple of like really simple things. And again, too many years as a personal trainer, but
mhm,
what are the simple, daily habits that someone can participate in to kind of like every day build their belief. And that's something that I've been working on for my whole career. Another thing that's super helpful is just line of sight reminders. So when we were on the retreat, I gave away little rings, handmade rings that my niece had made for me. And also, anchors, like don't forget who you are and having something on your person that constantly helps to anchor you. So I think the routines, the rituals, the daily practices, the ceremony, the line of sight reminders the anchors that are on your person, all of those help us to actually integrate the work that so many amazing people are sharing. And that's
mm,
what I'm most passionate about is like how do we take that and then help folks to actually integrate it to a point where they're being it, they're believing it, they're being it, they are it,
mm.
and then acting deliberately acting from that place.
Yeah. That makes me think about the ripple effects we can create and cause by being ourselves. Because what you're talking about, having the tools that support you to do that also means that the more you know yourself truly and the more acceptance you have of that journey while simultaneously being open to expansion, is that you can trust in how you curate your day or how you move through those tools and how, yeah, how you take care of yourself. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this amazing
You.
conversation. I will say, to be continued,
Yes,
and we'll
please.
make sure and add the very best ways to get a hold of you so people can
Please do.
meet you on Instagram and visit your website and, just get in touch with you.
Yeah, my website is under construction currently, so Instagram is the best place,
Amazing.
and I really look forward to bringing the horses through again. Um, you won't see any new stuff about horses, but anyone who resonates, you can have conversations with me. I love to speak about them and
Amazing.
look forward to bringing more of them through very soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
my
you so
friend.
much, Charlene, for this conversation. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.